You're welcome to step 6 of the board transformation process, the board execution from plan to impact. Now, we started at the very first step where we talked about your role and that of your board. We went on to talk about how to reactivate your board to get your board to step up, your present board. Then we talked about how to recruit new board members to complement your board. We went on to talk about strategic planning as a way to get your old board members and your new board members committed and supporting you. And then we went on to talk about recruiting the team that's going to do the execution. Right here, we're talking about the execution itself. How do you work with your board to actually execute your mission on a day-to-day level? Now, it is very important that you execute with your board. And as I said, it is not your board's role to do the work. So it means their role is to create the roadmap and build the team that does the job. And not just build the team, but also lead the team that does the job. And this is where your board execution comes in. They are going to work with you. They are going to work with these execution teams to execute in the different areas of the organization that you've delegated to them. And this is where execution happens to take its course. So it's very important that you build this culture of execution from the very beginning. Like I said, it is not, you don't need a governance board, especially at the startup stage. You need a board that's willing to roll up their sleeves to work with you to build the organization. Now, there is a 4-step framework for execution. The very first is the execution kickoff. The next is the fundraising execution. The next is the team execution. And lastly, the accountability systems. When we talk about the execution kickoff, this is your onboarding session for your execution team and everyone across the organization. So you want to bring every board member to a roundtable, including all the volunteers you've recruited, all the staff, and everybody across your organization. This is where you establish alignment. You want everyone to look at the execution process so that everybody begins to understand what's happening across the different aspects of the organization. You also want to be able to share and let them know the tools and materials available to them to help them create results. You also want to be able to establish the accountability processes so that everybody knows that they are being held accountable. This is the very first base from which your execution is going to take place. So it's very important that you hold this meeting, having everyone as part of it, showing them what needs to be done, showing them the tools, anchoring everything on the overall vision and the mission of the organization. As the founder, it is your board to anchor and facilitate this meeting so that everybody sees the passion and the motivation needed to go into the execution. It's also important that you set clear expectations from the very beginning so that everybody knows what's expected of them. The next second part of the framework is your board's role in fundraising. Many founders make the mistake to think that it is the role of their board to actually go out there to make the ask and raise money. That's why you find that some organizations even go as far as giving their board members fundraising targets, just like the way they give sales and marketers and insurance sales agents fund targets. That's completely wrong. You're going to get your board members disengaged by doing that. You need to be able to engage your board members the right way when it comes to fundraising. And how do you engage them? You engage them by getting them to map their network. Board members will gladly do that. Mapping their network by identifying the ideal funding audience of your organization that's within their network. So, for example, if one of the ideal funding audience of your organization is a real estate agent, they will be happy to point you to a real estate agent they know, right? That your fundraising team can go in to go make the ask on. So that's one area your board members can come in with fundraising. Another area they can come in is making introduction. So when they point you to the real estate agent, they can't be able to make the introduction to reach out to the real estate agent saying, my name is this, we're friends, or I know you. Well, my organization does this, and they would like to reach out to you, talk about an opportunity, right? So they can be able to make that introduction. Another area they can be able to come in is by sharing transformational stories. And this is why I always admonish founders to provide board members a detailed file containing all the transformational stories the organization has created so that board members can begin to share that across their network, across their social media handles to attract support for the organization. The fourth way board members can help with fundraising is in donor stewardship. So board members can actually call in to thank donors for giving. That way, you can be able to get donors to feel appreciated and even continue to give. But the sum of it all is this: if you want board members to step up and raise money and support your organization, you must be able to equip them to do so. And there are board members who are going to be willing to go out there to make the ask. It's also important you equip them to do so. But generally, most board members do not like the idea of going to make the ask. So your job is to be able to get them to make introduction, get them to map their network, and also get them to steward your donors and share your transformational stories. When it comes to team execution, your board leads and the team executes. So the board member who you've placed in charge of fundraising should be able to lead the team that's doing the fundraising. Those that are writing the grants, those that are setting up appointments, those that are sending out emails. The board member in charge should be able to lead them. And not just lead them, but also hold them accountable. So there has to be a process to hold these execution teams accountable. This could include sending in weekly reports, holding one-on-one meetings with them during the weekdays, right? Holding group meetings with them during the weekdays, auditing their performances, right? These are ways that your board members can be able to hold team members accountable. You also should be able to hold your board members accountable as well. Weekly team meetings, reports during meetings, auditing their performance, getting them to set goals. These are also ways you can get to hold your board members accountable, so that there's a culture of accountability across the organization. Because as I've learned from my experience within the nonprofit space, when people are not held accountable, they are most likely not going to follow through. So it's your job to hold your board members accountable, and it's your board members' jobs to hold the team accountable. Now, this is the reality of it. There's always going to be challenges and obstacles. Some volunteers may drop off along the way. Your job is to always course correct. Whatever that's happening, you must be able to find a way to solve the problem. You're going to have board members who are going to come up with all sort of excuses. And this is why you must have your accountability processes in place uptight. On a Monday, you should be following up with your board members. On a Friday, you're also following up to say, what did we do? What did we learn this week? And how can we create better results? Whatever that happens, you must be ready to be able to move in and make the necessary correction, because you are the visionary, you are the leader of this movement, and it is your responsibility to ensure that all part of this work is held together as one. Now, as a leader, once you get to the executions role, your role changes from that of a planner to a coach. Your job is now to be able to follow up with each board member, coaching them to be able to create those results that you expect them to. Your job is to be able to follow up with each of these volunteers, coaching them to be able to create the result as expected of them. You can be able to check on their progress, ask them what support do they need, follow them up to make sure that they feel like they're part of a team, they're part of an organization that values their input. That's how you build a great organization. Not by you doing the work, but by you setting up the system that does the job, and then you providing the support, you providing the coaching that's needed to get them to create results. So for today's action step, launch your fundraising efforts, support your team, recruit them if you haven't done so, kick off your execution meeting, and start working with your board and your team to create the result your organization seeks. The sum of it is this: your board leads, the team executes, and systems drive your success. This is the last part of the 6-step process. Now that you've gone through it, go back to the very first step, start taking action so that you can be able to build a board that will transform your organization and empower those you're called to serve. If you need any support along the way, email me at rooney@nonprofitboardbuilder.com. I'll be happy to support you. I'll be happy to provide you whatever results you seek. I'll see you when you reach out. That's the end of the course. Bye-bye.